Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Erin Metz. I'm a Senior Accessibility Specialist with the Disability Equity Office, here today to discuss effective communication as part of our NDEAM 2024 Lunch and Learn series, celebrating National Disability Employment Awareness Month. Some quick webinar tips for Zoom today is that you can use the Q&A feature to submit any questions that you might have. We also have ASL interpretation and CART transcription available for you. You can toggle those on or off using the buttons at the bottom of your Zoom screen. This workshop is also going to be recorded. It will be made available on our website and on our YouTube channel as soon as possible. The slides are also going to be emailed out to all of our registered participants, along with an anonymous survey. We do hope that you'll complete that survey. It's very short and, again, anonymous, so that helps us determine what other workshops that you may be interested in to help us meet your learning goals. Our agenda today is that, it's really important to be part of a culture that supports and embraces disability inclusion. So today we're going to talk about the ADA requirements for effective communication. We'll go over some interaction tips for various disability groups. We'll discuss the 7 C's of effective communication, go over some accommodation examples, and also some communication strategies. We do hope that you'll engage with us while we're modeling a comfortable, inclusive, brave, and safe space where questions are encouraged. We realize we're all learning together, and we may not know what we don't know, but we are going to respect the experiences of others and consider this an opportunity for growth and for learning. Before we get started today, I want us all to take a very quick poll as to why we're here today. So perhaps you're here because you want to learn more about the requirements of the ADA. You're here because you're an employee who wants to learn to communicate more effectively with your supervisor. Maybe you're an employee who wants to learn to communicate more effectively with your coworkers. Or maybe you're a supervisor who wants to learn to communicate more effectively with your employees. Or maybe you're here just because you want to learn more from the Disability Equity Office. So we'll give everyone a moment to just plug their answer in there. You should be able to select multiple answers if they apply. I do still see we have a lot of answers coming in, so we'll leave this poll open for just a few more seconds. Okay, it looks like we're here for a variety of reasons. Some of us do just want to learn more about the ADA. Some of you just want to listen to me talk for a little while. And others of you do want to learn how to communicate more effectively with those that you work with. So let's get us started talking about the requirements for effective communication under the ADA. So this will be very brief because we really want to focus more on how to help facilitate effective communication. So the definition of effective communication is fairly simple. It's a communication between 2 or more people where the intended message is successfully delivered, received, and understood. And the main purpose of this requirement under the ADA is to ensure that communication with people who have vision, hearing, or speech disabilities is just as effective as communication with those people without disabilities. So just to be clear and to avoid any confusion on what the ADA is telling us versus what we ourselves can do to facilitate more meaningful conversations, the ADA doesn't require that supervisors or other employees effectively communicate with us. It requires that we're providing the aids and services to assist with meaningful understanding and participation by individuals with disabilities. Ignorance or indifference to the law is not an excuse to not provide an accommodation or to engage in any of these prohibited practices under the ADA, which are failure to provide auxiliary aids or services, which is a failure to accommodate. Also imposing eligibility criteria that screens out individuals with disabilities. This could be whether through the employment process or whether we're providing services or other benefits or programs. We also cannot impose the charge on the individual with disability to cover the cost of providing the accommodation. And of course, we can't discriminate based on disability. So, like I mentioned, it was just going to very briefly talk about the regulations under the ADA about effective communication. But instead, we're going to spend a lot of time talking about what we can do to effectively communicate, because communication really is key. So, we want to start by setting the stage as to why effective communication is so important. So, some quick stats for the US are that 12 million people over the age of 40 have a visual disability. A million are blind, and 3 million have a visual disability even after correction. So, whether that's glasses or contacts, a cataract surgery, or anything of that nature. 18 million people have disabilities related to their voice. So, this could be damage to their vocal cords, or a stutter, or a speech impediment of another kind. 30 million people have hearing loss in both ears, and 11 million people have an auditory processing disorder. 66 million people have dyslexia, and an average 15 to 20% of people are neurodivergent, which is estimated somewhere between 51 and 68 million people. And again, this is just in the US. There are also a lot of myths about communication, including that those with communication disabilities are of lower intelligence. Those who can't hear, speak, or see can't understand language, and that if a deaf person can understand some gestures or lip reading, they can communicate solely through gestures and lip reading. And to continue in this vein of assumptions, people can also make a lot of assumptions about people's actions while communicating. So there's assumptions about where we should be looking and how much eye contact might be appropriate, because it can't be too much, but it also can't be too little. And someone can't have their eyes closed or be looking in a different direction. Also, a lot of assumptions about our posture, and that we can't be engaged in the conversation if we're fidgeting or moving too much, or if we're doodling. And obviously, we know that just because someone might be doing these things or might not be doing these things during a meeting or in a conversation, it doesn't mean that they're not still engaged. There are a lot of different ways that we can communicate. People who are blind might give and receive information audibly rather than in writing. Deaf people might give and receive information in writing or in sign language rather than verbally. Those with cognitive disabilities might prefer written communication or lists, and individuals with language or other communication disabilities may prefer to communicate via a fluency device or some sort of speech generating systems. So people can communicate in a lot of different ways, and that's okay. Because communication is key to so many different aspects of our life, whether it's our work, our education, our home, or our family life. To participate in effective communication, here are some tips. Ask individuals about their communication preference. Do you prefer to communicate via email, a face-to-face discussion, or some other means? Or do we need multiple ways to communicate depending on the circumstances or our environment? More tips are to avoid idioms, sarcasm, jargon, overuse of acronyms. Another tip is to pause when you ask a question. And a way to do this is to silently and slowly count to 10. This gives the receiver of your question appropriate time to listen, comprehend, prepare a response, and then give that response. And also pay more attention to what people are saying, what they're trying to communicate versus their facial expressions, their tone, or their body language. We can also model active listening. And we do not want to equate directness or a lack of small talk with being antisocial. And we can also consider providing context or notice for conversations and be prepared to take a step away, to regroup, to think about what we want to say, and then come back to our conversation. So now let's take another quick poll. So how often do you feel like you are communicating effectively with others? Is it never, sometimes, most of the time, or always? Okay, I see a lot of answers coming in. Give you just another moment. Okay, it looks like we've got most of our responses. So it looks like very few of you say that you never communicate effectively or that you always communicate effectively. And the majority of you are in the sometimes or most of the time area. And let's do just one more poll of how often others are communicating effectively with you. Is it never, sometimes, most of the time, or always? It looks like our responses are pretty similar to our last question. Give you just 2 more seconds. Okay, so we don't have any nevers or always, but we have a lot of sometimes and a lot of most of the time. So let's see what we can do to maybe bump those numbers up a bit when we talk about the 7 C's of effective communication. So the first C is clarity. We need to be clear and only communicate specific messages. So the receiver of our message should immediately be aware of what is being asked of them. This helps us limit the risk of misunderstanding and limit the risk of misinterpreting because clarity really makes the understanding easier and faster. The second C is coherence, where we connect all of the points of our communication message to ensure consistency and logic. This helps us give credibility to our ideas and avoids confusion and exhaustion for the receiver. It should not feel like we're navigating a complicated maze in order to understand the idea or the information that someone is sharing with us. The third C is confidence. Confidence helps convey what you need in an efficient way. It helps you appear more assertive, gives credibility to the information that you're sharing and to yourself as the communicator, and it helps you appear more professional. When we're able to think ahead about our message, it helps us remove a lot of those filler words, those words like or because we know what our message is and we understand and know the meaning behind it. The fourth C is correctness. And to communicate correctly, you need to think ahead about what you're trying to communicate. When we use correctness in our communications, it improves the impact of our message, it increases professionalism, improves comprehension, and helps to avoid confusion and misunderstanding of your message. The fifth C is conciseness. You need to be brief and you need to stick to the point. So I'm going to read 2 statements and let you think about which one of these is easier to understand. The first statement, I need the quarterly reports completed by tomorrow at noon. The second statement, hi, Eleanor. How are you doing today? I know our office has been swamped lately and you've been really busy with training Janet and working on the new database. But I have a meeting next week with Michael and I need to make sure we're able to show our monthly quotas have been met. Do you think you might be able to have some data available for me soon so I can review it? So which one of these statements is easier to understand? Hopefully you're all thinking it's the first statement. It immediately identifies what is needed and when. Whereas the second statement provides a lot of story and a lot of background. It's much more difficult to weed through all of those words to be able to determine what is it that the communicator actually is asking of us. So that's conciseness. Be brief, stick to your point. The sixth C is concreteness. We need to provide a clear picture by being specific. This helps us maintain interest in what the speaker is saying, avoid misinterpretation, and it helps us set a course of action because it's easy to identify what is being asked of us. And the seventh C is courtesy. We need to deliver our information with respect simply by being friendly and honest. When we do so, this builds rapport between our team and our coworkers. It allows individuals to feel heard and appreciated and builds a more efficient and loyal team. So we simply just need to consider the viewpoints of others, show respect, be polite, and be sensible. So when we look at all 7 C's, clarity, coherence, confidence, correctness, conciseness, concreteness, and courtesy, this can really lead to innovative ideas because we can all communicate more effectively our own needs, our wants, and our thoughts. So now let's spend a little bit of time talking about accommodations that might be available to help with that effective communication. So accommodations are also known as simply as reasonable modifications, and public entities are required to make changes to their policies, practices, or procedures when it's necessary for an individual with a disability. However, sometimes those modifications will not be necessarily necessary if they fundamentally alter the nature of the service, program, or activity. So, some accommodations for those who have print related disabilities. It could be a qualified reader, an audio recording, material available in Braille, the use of screen reader software, magnification software or a physical magnifier, and even large print materials. So, really, what we're looking for here is any other effective method of making visually delivered materials available to individuals with disabilities. Accommodations for those with speech disabilities could be use of assistive technology, text to speech software programs, the use of an interpreter, a voice amplification device, and augmentative and alternative communication, also known as AAC. So AAC is this image that we have here. It's a tablet that's covered in colorful words and images, and it allows a user to type in the message they want to deliver. And then the tablet itself has a speaker that allows them then to communicate with the message receiver. There are also accommodations available for helping us to decipher messages. So some individuals may have challenges with properly interpreting the meaning behind a communication or appropriately conveying their message. So you could use a tool like Goblin Tools, where they have a program that's called The Judge, which can help you decipher messages and determine the emotional context and the tone. So in the example here on the screen, I've typed into The Judge, effective communication is a basic human right with an exclamation point. And I've asked the judge to give me the tone of this statement. And the judge tells me the statement, effective communication is a basic human right, conveys a strong sense of conviction and urgency. It suggests that the speaker views communication as fundamental to human dignity and interaction. This assertion may evoke feelings of empowerment as it underscores the importance of being able to express oneself and understand others. There's also tools like Grammarly and UM's ChatGPT that can be used as tools to be a little more clear and concise to help you with those 7 C's, but they can also help you match a desired tone. So you can type into ChatGPT your statement and say, please make this sound more assertive. And then it'll print out a new version of your language right there for you. There are also accommodations available for those with auditory disabilities, like sign language interpreting. And we have pictured here Casey and Casey Ann, who are our staff interpreters for the office. We also have CART, computer assisted real time transcription, which is also here for us today. Also, captioned phones, assistive listening devices, hearing aid compatible phones, and also video phones. Even things like FaceTime. These can also be accommodations for those with auditory disabilities. I'm going to do another quick poll here just to see. Oh, bear with me a second. Find the right poll. We're going to do a quick poll on what percent of information do you think is communicated effectively through lip reading? Is it 10%, 25%, 50%, or 70 to 80%? So what percent of information is communicated effectively just through lip reading? Okay, it looks like people are still putting their answers in, so we'll give you just a few more seconds. Okay, we'll go ahead and end this poll. So a few of you have said 10%, the majority say 25, a handful of you said 50, and very few of you think it's 70 to 80%. But the answer is that lip reading is not reliable or effective at all. A 2011 study found that the mean word recognition accuracy for lip reading was about 10%. And of course, there are other individuals who can reach a much higher percentage, that they are more apt to using lip reading as an effective communication tool, but really the average is quite low. Because a visual of 10% was very difficult to create, we're going to take a quick look at what 20% accuracy looks like. So here we have a handful of words mixed in with a bunch of dashes, and each of those dashes represents a missed word. So it's highly unlikely in this 20% effective communication that this person receiving the message would be able to comprehend it. In this next example, we're simulating a 50% effective lip reading example. So here we have a lot more words that were able to be received, but still a lot of dashes there where information is missed. So if we were to see a 100% effective example of lip reading, or if we used an alternative for our effective communication, we would know that if we were to engage in conversation with a deaf individual and we did not provide any type of effective communication, but relied solely upon the individual to lip read, they would likely not obtain any of the important information that was meant to be shared between the two parties. So now let's move on to some communication strategies and some suggestions for addressing some of the most frequently asked questions that we receive in our office. But before we do so, I have another poll for you. I want you to take a moment and think about why effective communication is important to you. So hopefully you'll be able to just type in your answer of why effective communication is important to you. And I'll give you just a moment to do so. Maybe for those of you who stated that others do not often effectively communicate with you, why would it be more important if they were able to effectively communicate? Okay, I see some answers coming in that effective communication allows access for more people. Great. Effective communication is important because when people are comfortable talking about their concerns, they're more likely to find resolution. Excellent. Improves communication overall, improves understanding. Wonderful. So thank you all for sharing that information. So now we're just going to go through and talk about what some of these strategies are for hopefully increasing that effective communication. So starting with how to ask for help, also known as asking for an accommodation. You can be direct when stating that you need help at work. So maybe you can say, I'm having a hard time concentrating because of the noise level in the room. And you can also be direct and don't be afraid to ask for what you think could be helpful. Can I move my workstation to a quieter area? Maybe the answer is no, you can't move your workstation, but maybe there's an alternative option available, like using noise reducing headphones instead. And if you don't know what you need or you don't know what might help, that's okay too. You can always use some resources that are available, like JAN, the Job Accommodation Network, or you can come and talk to the accessibility specialist with the Disability Equity Office. Another question that we get a lot is about discussing accommodations with employees. So, in these situations, it's really important to remind our supervisors or our managers that the ADA says that we should not disclose any employee's medical information. And that medical information does include that someone is being provided an accommodation, because that is disclosing that person's disability information. Instead, it's much simpler for an employer, so our supervisor, to simply disclose it's made a modification to comply with federal law. And that sounds a little bit stuffy. So sometimes another alternative could be simply to state, this is this person's private information and I can't share it with you, but I'm happy to have a private conversation about your needs. When it comes to employees discussing their accommodations with their coworkers, they're not required to talk to anyone about their accommodations, but they can choose to do so, and it's up to them on what information they want to share. So some people want to advocate for themselves or share their story, share information to let others learn more about their condition and how it affects them. Others don't. In either case, it's up to the employee whether they want to disclose and what they want to disclose. We also need to make sure that we're using the right medium or the right platform to communicate. Effective communication requires us to consider whether you need to meet in person or if you can meet over Zoom instead. Is your message casual enough to use GChat, or would a more formal email be more effective and thorough? Whatever you choose should be intuitive and appropriate for the current situation and the people that you're communicating with. We've kind of mentioned this a bit already, but ask the person that you're communicating with what communication method they prefer in different situations. Realize that some people enjoy small talk and some don't. Some people need to start their day with a hello, how are you? Good morning. And others want to get straight to the point. And some people are really comfortable coming right out and asking for help, versus others who are much less comfortable and may need to ask for help in different ways. We also need to make sure we're considering our audience. So sometimes the people that we're intending to communicate with may be different from those who are actually receiving your message. And knowing your audience is really the key to make sure that you're delivering your message effectively. So oftentimes their demographics, so their age, their race, their gender, their marital status, whether or not they already have some knowledge about the subject, it's all going to affect how that person is going to receive your message. And this is a really important one. Practice active listening. This is really difficult in today's society because we all feel overwhelmingly busy at times, and we're doing multiple things all at once. But active listening is the practice of giving your full attention in a communication exchange. So you are paying attention to someone's body language, even though it's not the end all be all. Maybe you're giving encouraging verbal or visual cues. Maybe you are showing some body language back. You are asking relevant questions. You're repeating back what you think you heard or what you actually heard and making sure that you're understanding correctly. And you're practicing non-judgment. Active listening really means that you're not preparing your response to the situation or the story. You're not thinking about another task that you need to perform. You're not looking at that email that you just saw come in. You're not thinking about the errands you might need to run after work. Active listening is committing 100% of your attention to the communication. It is what's really going to drive some of that effective communication. And now we've got one final poll for you, which is, now that you've learned about effectively communicating, what are you going to do differently? So you are now going to communicate more effectively by, and then fill in our blank. And we'll give you just a moment to do that. I see someone wants to use Goblin tools. It's a great answer. You're going to communicate more effectively by being more concise. Wonderful. Okay, I'm going to let you all continue with typing in your answers as we move over to a question section. So I want to check in with my team to see if there are any open questions that we can help address while people are still coming up with their poll answers.
This is Allison speaking. Currently, there are no open questions in our Q&A.
Wonderful. So I'd like to give everyone plenty of time to come up with their questions. While they're doing so, we can go through some of our contact information and some resources available for you, including some of our upcoming events. Tomorrow at noon, this is at the Michigan Union, this is an in-person event, is NDEAM Trivia Live. There's still time to register for this really fun and exciting event. We hope you'll do so. Later next week, we have quite a few events. We've got a presentation on limitations and accommodations. There's going to be some helpful solutions for some of the most common limitations that people have been experiencing here at U of M. On the 23rd, we've got a workshop on Is Sign Language Universal? We've got another disability dialogue session with the ADA coordinators on the 24th, an in-person spoon theory experience on October 25th. This is where we can learn a little bit more about what it's like to go through the motions of our day, some of us with disabilities, some without. There's also still time to register for that in-person event. Towards the end of the month, we have accessible Word and Google Docs documents and how to make sure that we're creating our digital content accessibly. And then to round out the end of the month, we have our Ask an Accessibility Specialist drop-in hour, where you can come and talk to us about anything accommodation or disability related. Looks like we do have a question in the chat. How might you ask which accommodations are necessary for a team without feeling as though you're singling out an individual for their potential disability? It's a great question. Oftentimes, what we do when we're creating accessible environments and events is we like to share what what accommodations we're providing. So, for example, for this webinar, we made sure that we shared that ASL interpreters and CART transcription are going to be available. That way, anyone who needs those accommodations doesn't have to ask for them. They already know that they're going to be there and available for them. Then we'll have a statement in there about if you need any other additional accommodation, here's who to contact, and make sure you do so early so we have time to arrange that accommodation for you. So basically, the short answer is let them know what you can provide and are already planning to provide, and then let them know who to contact if they need anything additional. When it comes to specifics for your small team, perhaps, just make sure that they know that you are there to help. So sometimes the answer is as simple as, how can I help? Is there anything additional that we can do to make this event more accessible for you? Things of that nature. Okay, it looks like most people have finished our poll, so we're going to go ahead and end that poll question. And thank you all for participating in that. And we'll go back to our questions. It looks like someone's asking if the accessible Word doc and Google Docs webinar is going to be offered again. There's nothing currently in the works for that. However, it will also be recorded, and it tends to be a webinar that we offer occasionally. We just don't have a specific date in mind as of yet. Another question, is there a list of common accommodations that the university provides so that those of us that are unsure what the university might give could have a reference? So not exactly. However, if you are available on October 22nd at 10 a.m., we will be going over a lot of the information that it sounds like you're looking for. So we're going to talk about some of the most common limitations that people experience, things like concentration or memory or mobility related disabilities. And then we're going to talk about a lot of the accommodations that are available or could be effective for assisting with those limitations. Again, all of our workshops are recorded and we do post those on our website. So if you're not able to attend, we'll also have that available. Someone has asked if they sign up for the workshop but can't attend. Yes, you will absolutely get the slide deck and the recording made available. We do post all of those on our website and on our YouTube channel. Okay, I haven't seen any more questions come in yet, so just going to go over a couple more slides here of how you contact us. So if you're wanting to reach out to the Disability Equity Office, we do have an online portal for you to do so. So you can use the ADA initial contact form to talk to us about workplace accommodations, or if you just have a general question about accessibility, disability, or inclusion. If you are hosting an event or a meeting and you need ASL or CART services, you can also request those through our website. Also for digital accessibility reviews, you can do all of that through this online form. You can also request specific training or report barriers to access via our online form. When it comes to these workshops, we can provide them for your small group or for your unit. Some things about ableism awareness, how to help create some of those digital documents in an accessible way, creating inclusive environments, just to name a few. And then when it comes to reporting those barriers to access, these are things like an elevator that is not operating, or the push button door opener is not working correctly, or maybe there are trees and shrubs and cracked pavement that are making it very difficult to traverse the sidewalk, or you've come across inaccessible software or other documents. You can report all of those barriers to access over to our office, and we'll do our best to get those remedied as quickly as possible. We do have some other learning opportunities available for you. You can use a filterable list of resources on our website to help you get to the correct party to help you with whatever question you might have. Like we mentioned, we have a YouTube channel where we post all of our presentations. We have our upcoming events page and then a link to all of our past presentations in slideshow form and to the recording. All right, we'll just go back to see if there are any other questions that are coming in.
Hi, Erin. There is another question. Are these accommodation options searchable in UMGPT?
This is Erin speaking. As far as I know, UMGPT is still expanding its database of information. So the last time I checked, there was some information that was there, depending on how you're asking the Chat GPT prompt. So if you specifically ask what accommodations may help with concentration, it may not give you quite the information that you're looking for, but as the database continues to grow, there might be more additional information that's there as well.
We have another great question in the chat, Erin. Can the report a barrier form be filled out anonymously to report issues?
Yes, it can. So you do not need to provide any contact information or your name. However, if you are able to provide your contact information, that does help us get more information if it's needed. Oftentimes, when we are reporting a barrier, when we're talking to whoever may need to address that barrier, we don't need to give them your information as the person who is the reporter. So, yes, you can absolutely fill that out anonymously, but depending on the information, we may have follow-up questions that we wouldn't be able to have addressed if we don't have contact information. So, up to you how you would like to fill that out. Okay, we'll give it just a few more minutes for any other questions that you might have. And of course, if you come up with questions after our presentation today, you can always use that online contact form to reach us, and we'll be happy to help you. Okay, I don't see any other questions coming in, so I just want to take a moment to thank you all for being with us here today. We do hope that you will now be able to move forward, communicating a bit more effectively with those around you. But if you do have any other questions in the future, please let us know, and we hope to see you at future NDEAM events. Thank you all.